values. We think values are something that we need to keep foremost in front of mind in these days. So this is the object of Rotary. For more than a century, professionals have come together at Rotary to put their expertise and passion to the service of the community. These values have always been at the heart of the organization's guiding principles. The object of Rotary to encourage, foster, first, the development of acquaintance as an opportunity for service. Second, high ethical standards in business and professions. The recognition of the worthiness of all useful occupations and the dignity of each Rotarian's occupation and service. Fourth, the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace through world fellowship of business and professional persons united in the ideal of service.
Armin, would you like to come up and introduce our speaker?
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's my pleasure to introduce two people that we all know that has been here numerous times before. It's a privilege to have you both here. Thank you. First of all, I'll start with Matt. We all know Matt Boulanger. He is the Williston Planning Director. Matt has worked in Williston since 2008. Planning Director since 2008, Lawrence University, and a Master's in Sustainable Transportation from the University of Washington. Matt grew up nearby in Moncton and now lives in South Burlington with his son. Fascinated by the challenges facing Williston through its planning program, including how to from rural quality equitable and conservation goals. Next, Emily Heymann, she has been a senior planner since 2022. Emily holds a degree from in urban and environmental planning from the University of Virginia. Emily grew up in Roanoke, Virginia, and now resides in Waterbury. Emily enjoys a variety and a breadth of Williston planning programs. Staffing, historic and planning review, communication and outreach, and meeting facilitation. Emily is also a PSIA certified children's alpine instructor. So I welcome you both here to our Rotary Club meeting.
Thank you, Armin, and thank you for having us here. It's always a pleasure to be here, whether I'm the first choice or the backup. Doesn't matter. We'll always come speak to Rotary, and really excited to be back with you. The last couple of times we've been with you, we've been talking about the town plan, and we have a complete draft of the town plan out on the town website right now, and physically present with us today. The Williston Planning Commission will be holding a public hearing on that document on May 20th, so in just a couple of weeks, and hopefully voting to transmit that forward to the select board for their review, and we think ultimate approval by the end of August, which is about when on schedule. We're very happy about that. This plan is a complete rewrite. We started literally with a blank page. We started over 2 years ago, designing our public engagement and really making sure that we brought the community back in and took a really comprehensive visit of all of the issues that face Williston as a community, as a municipality, and as a dynamic and interesting place to work, which is why I've stuck around since 2008. It's why I came here. There's a lot happening in Williston. Williston has a long history of responding productively and positively to a changing world and the development pressures that have faced it. And we hope that this plan continues that. So Emily prepared a presentation that we will go through to talk a little bit about this town plan. And she can pass the mic back to me anytime you want me to add any words of wisdom, but I think I'm happy to have you drive. And I'll just say, in addition to this community being an absolute pleasure to work in, and an inspiring place to work in, I have a fantastic to inspire me and make me want to come to work every day. And I don't think there's a project where their competence, creativity, and motivation is any more evident than in the document that is out there in front of you today in this town plan. And anything about this plan where it looks good and it's easy to read, you can thank Emily for that. She is our resident Microsoft Word and formatting wrestler, and has done a fantastic job with that. So thank you to Emily specifically for her leadership and work that. And let's take it away.
Thanks, Matt. And we can cue up the slide. Many folks in this room have
that.
when we began our public outreach process, we like what's the theme? What's going to be the driving gravitas? Really think visionary, and also stay focused at the same time. And the words that came up were livable, resilient, and equitable. So how can Williston be livable, resilient, and equitable today over the 8-year lifespan of this plan, and looking with that outlook to 2050? So what actually is a town plan? It's required in state law in order to have zoning and apply for certain grants, among other requirements. It must be renewed every 8 years. In the past, it used to be 5, which thank God we're not on that breakneck timeline anymore, every 8 years. And it must address 12 required elements. So some folks that we had at town fair or is hanging in our office, those are the state required 12 elements that you have to talk about. So how does this document get used besides? So going back to the last slide, we're using the town plan to direct changes to zoning, policies, ordinances. It's a prioritization tool for decision makers. So the planning commission, the select board, boards and committees, it's one of their many tools to drive their prioritization. It's certainly not the only tool, but it's one of the tools that really impact what community said, and what state law is asking us to think about in our comprehensive planning. It's a collective vision, so that town bodies, decision makers, and advisory bodies are generally working towards the same goal, the same land use plan, and the same programming and service delivery. And when we wiped our plan from scratch and we're starting with this one, we knew we wanted to guide informed and fiscally responsible decisions. And we'll get into how it requires that the town plan be approved by the select board. They help. So May 20th, the planning commission hearing in the library community room. Town meeting TV will be there. So if you have to zoom in, it's going to be great on visual quality. And then the select board hearings in July and August. All those meetings leading up to that, the planning commission is going to be talking about it. We have a couple of joint check-ins. So these are the big hearings, but there's many opportunity in between them to engage with some staff. Where we've been, so we've been in this room before. Back in fall of 2023 was when we had our major push of our outreach events, asking people what they wanted to see in the town, what their hopes and visions and values were. We wrapped that up in April 2024 with the Engagement Insights Report. And then that Planning Commission and staff used that Engagement Insights Report write the town plan, and there are several iterations over the summer, breaking up topic areas into small groups, so planning commission and staff folks really focus and deep dive in a topic area. Engage with other community groups and partners, and in our engagement and downtown plan writing. Where that landed us is earlier this year, the planning commission and select board got together, and then lastly, this draft plan document has been published for the world. So the fiscal responsibility side of things and the doing side of things, not just letting a document sit on the plan. We have a specific set of verbs, and probably the verb we use the most is evaluate. So what will the town do? There's a lot of things that need evaluation. We don't know. What are the challenges and weaknesses? What are the costs and benefits? Are there grant funds available? Evaluate is a work product, kind of like a white paper that's followed by a decision on next step. So if we're bringing a new idea or an idea that hasn't been talked about in a while to the planning commission or select board or another body, it's going with the most facts and information possible so that they can make an informed decision on it. The next verb we have on the next slide is develop. So typically that comes after develop. So developing a park, a program or a new function, or develop a policy like writing or amending the zoning bylaw. Another verb is implement. So putting in an existing plan or recommendations into effect. So there's a lot of implement in this plan. We have a lot of service delivery that the town's already doing, and those things will continue to be implemented. And that leads into the next verb, maintain. Maybe I don't have that slide, but maintain. So we want to maintain a good program of filling potholes and having the library, that kind of thing. And we specifically do not use the word consider. It pops up in there a little bit, but we really tried to pick a better verb because we could just say, yeah, we considered doing the library addition, but we're not going to. We really want them to be informed, data-driven, information-driven, community data of what did the people say. We don't want to just consider without knowing all the information. We want it to be an evaluate and very informed process. So we try to avoid consider. And how will we do it? Things come down to time, people, and money, particularly money. And when fund is used in the plan, it's used in a very careful manner of, we're not saying, yes, actually put money towards this. We're saying, bring it to the decision makers and the advisory bodies so they can think about it comprehensively. So that we have a large town budget, there's a lot going on it, and anything that's being changed or added or removed to that budget needs to be very thoughtful. So fund is, if it needs to be a bond vote, bring it to the citizens for a vote. If it's something that needs to be figured out in a capital plan, it's figured out in that way. So fund is not saying, yes, we're gonna fund something, it's follow the process so that it can be considered and given the due process it deserves. Another due word is support. So staff and volunteer time, for example, supporting town fair or all the recreation programming does with working with community groups. So support is a action of putting time and effort into a partnership of working with our community members.
There's maintain.
There's maintain. Okay, we have it after verb. So maintain is maintain potholes, maintain a program. That kind of thing. So some actions that I have a new chapter 2, arts and social infrastructure. And one of those things, it's a small one, but to develop a uniquely Williston brand that brings both the town, the community, and organizations together, kind of like how other communities have their cohesive branding package that brings everyone together. And then implement it in welcome signs, streetlight banners, that kind of thing that helps make Williston feel like a uniquely Williston place. Another example for community organizations is policies for the municipal property and temporary event. This Federated Church community room gets a lot of use, and there's a lot of need for places for people to gather to have meetings, to have events, all kinds of spaces. So that last one is develop a partnership with community organizations, property. I'm thinking about events and that kind of thing in town, parks and spaces. A maintain example, so though we are wiping the slate clean to an extent in how the plan is organized and adding in new topics, we're not going on 180, especially in terms of zoning. So maintain the boundary of the ag rural zoning district and future land use designation. So in the life of this 8-year plan, we're not gonna be creating a new growth center down your Lake Iroquois. We're gonna kind of maintain, a lot of our zoning stuff is maintain and fine tune. Keep that decades long trajectory of consolidating growth in the growth center, connecting places with paths and park, and having a really strong conservation and parkland program for the majority of the town's land area. The next slide is also about maintain is the sewer service area. Let's not extend the boundaries of the sewer service area. And in the past town plans, this question has come up to the planning commission, to the select board, hey, I would really like it if you extended this sewer boundary farther out so my property could be in sewer. And there wasn't really a good statement in the town plan that said whether that would be okay or not. And in the town plan, we're having a really clear statement. No, we're not gonna move that boundary. So if that question does come up in that 8-year time frame, the decision maker bodies have this kind of document to go on. And if you wanted to change direction, it would have to be a comprehensive plan amendment. It can't just be a spot decision. And fund. This is a fund example with the ERF, the Environmental Reserve Fund. So that's one where it was put on the ballot this past budget cycle and it was approved. Managed so that they grow in a market, how it's allocated, rather than just having one line item in the town plan that's do some stuff with the Environmental Reserve Fund. It's giving the Conservation Commission and the town manager's office and the select board a lot of information to make very guided and pointed actions and decisions. And a development fund example would be the Williston Road multi-use path. So thinking about, is there a way to connect the village and Taft Corners? I know every time I'm driving into Taft Corners for lunch, there's somebody walking on the side of that road. So how are we developing? We had that scoping study done recently. How do we further scope and build that project, and what funding opportunities are there beyond just town taxpayer dollars, thinking about state or federal grants? And we know the future of that might be a little bit different, but thinking about, is there funding opportunities beyond just the funds here? And then in Aldeburgh, one would be the community center. So the library did that scoping study. Things are working their way towards the library expansion project, but there's that longer term goal for a community center. So evaluating opportunities, where can it go? What are the funding sources? And is it something that the town can afford in its current economic climate and with all its other debt service going on? So making sure that we're looking at this very comprehensively so that when it comes time for the citizens or the select board to make a decision, there's a lot of information that led up to a decision. So how you guys can get involved, read the plan. If you find any typos, we appreciate that a lot, as well as, broader comments and questions. We are always available. Planning commission members are always available if you want to call us or email us. Provide comments to the planning commission and select board. So we revise the little postcards. If you read the plan, there's something there you like, something you want to question, fill it out, put it in our mailbox, or come to one of those meetings on this schedule. And the last one is a shameless plug for volunteers on town boards and committees. If you want to help us actually do the thing, or know somebody who would be a good fit for your committee, it seems that community word of mouth seems the best way to get volunteers involved with town governance. So with that, I'll turn it over to Matt for any comments, and then you guys for questions.
Great. I just want to echo something Emily just said, which is how to participate and read the plan. So it is out there. The best place to read it right now is through Williston2050.com. That'll take you to the most current draft, which right now is that May 20th hearing draft for the planning commission, which is this one that I'm holding here. And I just wanted to point out, everything Emily just presented about are the action items. So I often big to-do list, 17 chapters, has those strategies and actions in it. And then chapter 18, the concluding chapter, puts them all together, talks about them in terms of time frame, relative cost, departmental responsibility, and adds a little bit about prioritization or whether a particular action might meet goals across multiple chapters or subject areas. So we've really tried to make the plan user-friendly. So when you read the plan, you're gonna find some color in it, keeping those color ink cartridges in the office from drying out here. And there's a how to use this plan section right in the beginning, and that's what I'm just sort of showing here. Top 3 facts for each chapter subject are in the red boxes. Top 3 elements of public input for each chapter are in the green boxes. Top 3 goals under that livable, resilient, equitable rubric are in the blue boxes in each chapter. And then the action items are in the bold boxes, or in the gold boxes rather. Then more information written around that is text. There's pictures, there's graphs and charts. There's even citations and links to the source documents for these things. So we really wanted this plan to be something that if you just want land use designations, there's a chapter, you can just go read that whole chapter. If you just want to flip through and read top couple of facts about every, you can do that by looking for those colored boxes. If you just want to go to the end and know what the to-do list is, just read chapter 18. If you like maps, there's 18 of them. Just look at the maps. They're beautiful. Hannah Hartman in our office did a terrific job updating our town plan maps. We really want this to be the owner's manual for the town of Williston. We want it to be usable by everybody. We want citizens who come and interact with their elected decision makers and appointed decision makers to be in this plan. We certainly want the boards, we staff and our coworkers and the town staff to understand how their work conforms to this plan and an overall vision and direction for the town, which is again, that livable, resilient, equitable. How does the town of Williston become resilient and equitable? 50, that long-term vision. So I'll stop there, but please read the plan. We're really proud of it. We really want to make sure that we get it over the goal line and that it's something that everybody in town can be proud of. This is your plan. And from there, I think we'll take questions.
I'll say I'm a fan of the plan and I have been talking about it around town, like I noticed, or I mentioned earlier. What's the biggest difference between this plan and the last town plan?
Biggest.
Or how is it evolved?
Yeah.
I would say detailed. So an example in the last one was consider adopting a form-based code, which was a major facelift to the Tap Corner zoning district. And that was one item. Now, when we talk about a zoning bylaw, and then we're listing out like 5 or 8 steps of all of the evaluate current conditions. Do we actually need to change anything? Grant funding. So we're trying to lay things out in a much better roadmap so that planning staff and commissioners have a clearer path forward. So when it seems like there's hundreds of actions and hundreds of strategies in this document, there are more like a detailed recipe than just say, go do one thing.
Yeah, do you think that'll provide more cohesiveness, like when you have to do this again in 8 years? Is that the hope?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, we hope that whether it's us or somebody else in 8 years, that plan will be able to be an update rather than a complete rewrite, because we've built in the framework where we can really carefully look at the things that we're saying the town needs to do and bring them along. We want this to be a living document. We want to turn chapter 18 into a live dashboard on the Williston 2050 site so we can update it quarterly and report on our progress on the plan and make sure citizens are involved with that as well. The other thing I'll say that's a difference between this plan and the last plan is there is some attempt at timeline and prioritization. So what's the first thing we ought to do? What's the easiest thing we ought to do? What's the hardest or most expensive thing we ought to do about this subject? And where does that all fall? And across the entire plan with all of the action items, we're trying to do a top 20 priority. So Emily's example, there was this one line in the plan that said, rework the zoning in Taft Corners and consider a form-based code. And that turned into a 2-year, $120,000 planning project that fundamentally reworked the development standards for that area and set us on a course towards having a walkable downtown in Williston. We all knew on the staff that one line was a big deal, and it was put in there very intentionally, and there was a lot of understanding among the decision makers that was a project we needed to take on. But somebody who just moved to Williston the year before and picked up the plan might have looked at that and said, oh, there's literally just this one sentence about it, and you guys are spending all this time on it. What about everything else in it? We want to make sure the plan brings a greater sense of, to achieve this vision, here are a lot of things to do, but we also have some idea about what the most impactful ones are.
Yeah, dude.
I have to say, I started reading it and the color really grabs you for one thing, and then the bullets for this, the topic is that you're interested in, but I was surprised Matt said it was done pretty much all in-house here, because I thought, oh, they must have gotten somebody, a consultant that did all of this. So if you did a lot of the work, Emily, thank you. And I have a question. Because there's so much unknown about federal funding, what kind of federal funding does Williston use? Is there a percentage that you've been kind of going on for a while that might be hanging in the balance?
Well, when we look at the kinds of actions that the town plan calls for and the things that the town is engaged in, the greatest influence that federal funding has on the town is through transportation funding. So, when we pursue state grants for things like bike paths or fixing intersections or signals or any of those things, really functionally, usually about 80% of that money is actually federal money. So when we go through the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, which is also a metropolitan planning organization, which is their designation that they are the pipeline through which federal transportation dollars flow. That's a thing that is likely to come up for us as a challenge. If transportation dollars in general or Chittenden County are reduced, some of the grant opportunities we would normally go after to build infrastructure could be reduced or dry up entirely. And that could shift the scope of some of those projects. It could shift the timeline. It could change the decision of whether we do something or not. But anything could happen, as we've all experienced over the last 100 days. But transportation funding to the states is a really big deal, including a president or an administration to be looking at, because it really is the number one way that citizens experience the influence and power of the federal government, right in front of their doorstep. Is that road getting fixed? Is that new sidewalk going in? Are we going to get that pedestrian bridge over I-89 behind my house in South Burlington? So there will be a lot of political pushback from a whole lot of places if the administration starts really manipulating transportation funding. So I hope they don't. And I hope those transportation alternatives grants and those other kind of grants that we rely on to fix up and build infrastructure continue to be available. And that said, there are other ways of funding infrastructure. We are studying the idea of a tax increment financing district in Taft Corners. That could be a catalyzing event for Williston in terms of getting the sort of development pattern to happen that the vision says we would like to happen. That more dense, mixed use, walkable, bikeable downtown environment would be greatly sort of enhanced and encouraged by the town taking a greater hand in infrastructure construction. And that would not be federal money, that would be money that's raised and the what would norm tax inside of that district. And there's a whole, we'll come back and talk about TIF another time. But there are other ways that a municipality with the kind of capacity and professional, staffing that Williston has and will continue to have can pursue to keep achieving its goal. We don't have to sort of completely rely on one source. And in fact, we never will, if we're gonna get anything done.
Branding Williston. Can you talk a little more about what that looks like?
Yeah, that would be, so if you look at like the town logo and all the department logos, there's a lack of cohesion. And I live in Waterbury where there's a lot of cohesion. I think some of that comes out of the Revitalizing Waterbury group. So that would probably look like, if there's grant funds available, pursuing them to probably do some light community vision, get some ideas from the community and then come out with a branding package. A lot of communities, they have it designed where there's more official town logos and then there's more for the town government's use. And then there's general logos that, Rotary Club could use or the town band could use to have like cohesive, or if there's like a business association that forms in the future, they could use it and give a Williston a more unique identity. One idea that came up recently was there's so many cool new restaurants in Williston that you could do a restaurant week in town. And in fact, in Taft Corners, you could probably walk between most of them because there's so many cool places and new places going to be opening soon. So thinking a little bit more about the social infrastructure, all of these unique community groups and businesses in town, and how can they more cohesively be brought together for a digital presence, a physical presence with signage, that kind of thing.
Yeah, if I say the word Stowe, who in the room doesn't have the big red S in their head right now? Whether it's the town sign or the resort logo. Imagine if there was something as recognizable as that about Williston.
But you haven't come up with like the image yet, or?
No.
Yeah. Also, do you want us to fill these out now, or would you rather have us read the plan first?
It's up to you guys. If you have a burning question or an idea, please do write it down now. We'll have more postcards at our office, or you can shoot us an email. So up to you guys. You don't have to read the plan to fill out a card.
Emily, you mentioned the amount of waste that the cleanup produced. Could you just touch on that quickly?
Oh, yes. So you guys are the first to know. We got our numbers back yesterday that we collected 3.13 tons of trash. I believe that's about a quarter to a half a ton more than last year. So really blew it out of the park. And I think we gave out nearly 1,000 bags.
Thank you both for being here this morning. It's a pleasure having you both here. Thanks for you being here. We're going to make a contribution to the Williston Central School mentoring program. So, thank you very much. I could have had for our Apple. And the last three numbers are
467.
467. All right. Congratulations, Walter. It's been a pleasure having you both here. The town of Williston is very fortunate to have people of your caliber in this department. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming here and educating us and for what you're doing for the town.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys. And again, for putting on the town fair. As far as I know, that's a lot of Emily's work, and it was so good this year. It just keeps getting better each year, and you had a lot more people this year, right? Even though it was kind of icky and rainy.
Yes.
Yeah. It was really fun. So amazing job. And I love that there were more, seemed like more organizations involved this year too. So got a lot. There was so much free food. Yeah. Best part when you're there all morning. So thanks again for all you do. All right, next we are going to have an inspiration from one of our very new members, Matthew.
Thanks so much for taking this on, Matthew.
Of course, it's a pleasure to have the opportunity. Good morning, everyone. I think that thematically, this is pretty appropriate to not just the time we're in, but also the talk we just heard about future planning. Let me sing to you now about how people turn into other things. This is a line from Richard Powers' Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Overstory, a sweeping and passionate work of activism and resistance that is also a stunning evocation of and hymn to the natural world, and in particular, trees. This novel has captured my heart and mind over the last couple of weeks, and I found a deep inspiration in its flowing prose and themes of quiet growth, persistence, and connectedness. Inspiration I hope to share with you all today. While in our less receptive moments, trees may appear to us as static and changing, the book reminds us that they are not just scenery. They are storytellers, timekeepers, and quiet collaborators in the world. In their aching desire to reach for what sustains them, they undergo profound transformations, and they don't do this alone. Trees, like people, are parts of vast, interconnected systems that we don't always see. Underground, trees communicate and support each other through roots and fungal threads. When one is sick, others send nutrients. When danger is near, they warn their neighbors. It's a quiet, invisible kind of service, persistent, generous, and essential. That to me feels like Rotary. Much of what we do is unseen: mentoring, volunteering, fundraising, helping our towns quietly and consistently. Like trees in a forest, we create a network of support, not for intention, but because it sustains life and community and makes us all grow strong and resilient together. In a particularly poignant human moment in the story, in which two characters are facing the complexity of shared love and loss, Powers grounds our focus in the trees surrounding their house, writing, "The things they've planted in years gone by are making significance, making meaning, as easily as they make sugar and wood from nothing, from air and sun and rain." What we plant today in our communities, in our families, in our acts of service, may not bear fruit immediately, but quietly, steadily, they begin to matter. They begin to mean something. Our efforts, like those of trees, can transform the invisible into the vital. As we see the world blooming around us and the trees rouse from their long winter slumber, I invite us to reflect on what we are planting, to remember that the good we do here may outlast us, that the smallest act of compassion, the quietest effort to serve, might one day bloom into something we'll never see, but will change someone's life. And like the forest, we don't do this alone. Today, I invite us to think like trees, to root deeply in our values, reach out to others, joyfully strive towards life-giving light, and trust that the work we do, seen or unseen, strengthens and transforms us all.
What's the book called again?
It's called The Overstory
The Overstory by
by Richard Powers.
Richard. Okay, thank you. Always looking for good books to read. And I've been really noticing the trees lately. One of my favorite parts about spring is all the tree flowers. They're so subtle and just brief and beautiful. And I love how every day right now, the leaves are a little bit more open and a little bit bigger. And been really enjoying that lately. So thank you. Very appropriate. And thanks for volunteering to do an inspiration when you've only been a member for a couple weeks. That's great. Okay,